Hi, as a person who is new to sewing, do you often get overwhelmed trying to figure out what sewing supplies you need to get started? I got you. Hi, my name is Catherine. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you are new, I hope that you like what you see here and you will subscribe. In today's video, I will share with you the sewing supplies that a beginner needs to get started on their sewing journey. Okay, so the first thing you will definitely need a sewing machine. And this is my sewing machine in all of its glory. I happen to have a Brother sewing machine, but you can use any sewing machine to get started. This happens to be a Brother SM3701, and I like this sewing machine because it has an all-in-one buttonhole. So that's my machine, and that's the first thing you need to get started. In addition to your sewing machine, of course, you need to sew. So you need to have thread. Now, I have this thread on my sewing machine, and I also have an assortment of threads to show you. Now, this is a huge spool of thread. This would be for those persons who sew a lot, this big spool of thread. Now, I normally get my thread from the local supply store. Most of my thread will say dual duty, but you just need regular all-purpose thread. You need to get the bobbins because you need bobbins when you sew on your sewing machine. This is what it looks like, and you know how you have the top thread, the bobbins, the bottom thread comes from the thread that's in the bobbin. Now, when you start sewing, of course, you need to use some cutting utensils. So you need scissors. Now, these are 4 different scissors that I have here that serves 4 different purposes. Okay, so let's begin with this one here. This is my fabric scissors. I use this to cut my fabrics. Now, please do not use your fabric scissors to cut paper. That will dull your scissors and you won't be able to use it to cut fabric anymore because it will not be sharp anymore to cut your fabric. So please do not make that mistake as a beginner. Use your fabric scissors for fabrics only. Then we have this scissors here, and this is a pinking shears. Because you're a beginner, most likely you won't have a serger as yet. So you will use these pinking shears to finish the edges in your garments so that they will not fray. Now, for knits, it won't unravel, okay? But for wovens, definitely you need pinking shears, or you can use the zigzag stitch on your regular sewing machine. Then we have these scissors here. Now, this is what I use when I cut paper. Now, when you begin sewing, you will probably start off using commercial patterns. You need to cut those patterns. You need to cut the pieces out in order for you to begin sewing. So this is where this scissors comes in. You will use this to cut your pattern so that you will have your patterns cut out for when you are ready to sew. Also, if you are a person you want to take on a challenge, you can use this when you are drafting your own patterns. And lastly, snip snip. I use this particular scissors right here when I am cutting off all those loose threads, all those threads that are dangling. Sometimes you make that perfect garment and then when you look, there's always a thread hanging. So this ensures that you have no loose threads. I almost forgot to tell you about the needles. How could I forget? And let me just get them right quick. Alright, so you went through all the trouble to cut out your pattern, and now before you even cut out your pattern, you need some pins. You need these pins so that you can attach your pattern to your fabric in order for you to cut it out. So you will need these pins. You don't need anything fancy. You just need something to get the job done, okay? So now that you have placed your pattern on your fabric, now that you have cut your fabric out, you definitely need some sewing needles. So You need regular needles as well as ballpoint needles. So for the regular needles, I normally use this brand right here, the Organ brand. This is the brand that I use. I use the Organ brand, and these are the needles that I use if I am just doing any project and if I'm doing a project with wovens. Now, I will be honest, but I don't want you to do this. Sometimes I forget and don't change my needles, but get in the habit. If you are going to sew anything with knits, ballpoint or stretch needles, and that is what you'll be using. Now keep in mind, Organ does have ballpoint needles, so you can use them as well. So either one you can use, okay? Once it says ballpoint. Now these needles come in different sizes. On this you will see 965. That's just telling you what size needle it is. That's a size 9. They can come smaller or they can come bigger. It all depends on the weight of the fabrics that you are using. Because if you are using a lightweight fabric, you want to use a smaller needle. If you are using a thicker fabric, then you will want to use a bigger needle that can handle that fabric and it doesn't break. Okay? So now that we have gotten to that point, you will need a sewing gauge. Now this sewing gauge, normally when you use commercial grade patterns, it always dictates a 5/8 inch seam allowance, and that is the seam allowance that you will use to sew your garment. Now, when I draft my own patterns, I normally use 1/2 inch seam allowance, but that's just my preference. So it all boils down to what your preference is, okay? But that is what you can use this for. Or if they tell you to press up a hem allowance of 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, what have you, this is where this gauge comes in handy for you as a beginner. You have already cut out the pattern. Well, even before you cut out the pattern, I am just all over the place and I do apologize. Even before you cut out the pattern, what size pattern are you going to cut out? How will you know what size pattern to cut out? Good question, you might ask. This is what you need, my friends. You need a handy dandy measuring tape. The measuring tape goes from 1 to 60. Now you will need this measuring tape because you need to know what size pattern to cut out. And in order for you to do that, you actually have to take some measurements on your body. So that will tell you what size pattern you will have to cut out, because if you don't know your measurements, then what are you going to cut out? You need to know your measurements in order for you to cut out the right size so that you can get the fit that you want. In addition to using pins to hold your pattern to the fabric in order for you to cut it out, you can also use these. These are just regular washers that you can get from your local hardware store. Now I use these because they have some good weight to it, and this is the thickness. It has a good weight to it, and you can use those to cut out the pieces that you will need to create your garment. As a beginner, most likely you will probably start off doing projects that has a elastic waist. As a beginner, you would not jump wholeheartedly into making projects with zippers and all of those different things. So you need this trusty safety pin. This is what you will use when you are running through your elastic through the casing. This is what you need right here. You don't need anything fancy, just this. This will get the job done. Now, this is the part that no one likes, but mistakes happen. Okay? So in the event that you make a mistake on that lovely make that you have taken your time and you've put so much effort, your love, your sweat, your tears, your blood into this make, and then you have to unrip everything, all those stitches that you have just created, and you have to take them out. That is where seam ripper comes into play. Now, I must have about 1 million seam rippers, and now that I came to do this video, I can't find a single one. And don't be put off when you have to rip something out. Mistakes happen. Just like mistakes happen in life, Mistakes also happen in sewing, and it's a part of the journey, so embrace it. Sometimes instructions on the patterns ask you to hand sew. So in order for you to hand sew, you need some needles. You don't need anything fancy, just some needles, because you're just finishing your garment off by doing a little bit of hand sewing, okay? For those persons who just start sewing, most likely you wouldn't start off with a serger. You will use the zigzag stitch on your sewing machine in order for you to finish your garments. But I happen to have a serger, and if you want to, if you're feeling jiggy, those sewing enthusiasts, and you feel, hey, I want to venture into making my own patterns as a beginner, that's awesome. So you will need these bad boys. These are just some rulers that you will need. These are curved rulers that you will need because you are drafting a skirt or a pants. You will need these ones with a curve, or if you are drafting a sleeve and you need this for the arm side, okay? But a person who has just started sewing probably wouldn't want to draft their own patterns, okay? They will most likely use the commercial grade patterns that are out there. That brings me to the end of my video. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comment section under the video. And if you like what you see on my channel, please subscribe. We are a community over here. We are a family, which means that I need your support. Families support one another. I need your support to help my channel to grow. And some of you are watching my videos, but you are not subscribing. What are you waiting for? Subscribing is free. It does not cost you anything. It's free. So why not help me out while I help you out? Okay? And some of you are watching my videos, but you are not commenting. We are a family. This is how we engage. This is how we communicate with one another. So I need you to comment on my videos. And for those persons, please stop skipping through my videos. Please help your girl out by watching the videos in its entirety, because you are helping me to get my watch hours up. I'm trying to reach 500 subscribers, and I can't do that without you, without your help. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Share my videos with your family, with your friends, and those persons who just love sewing. Share my videos with them. I will see you in the next video. Be blessed.